The framework that Ms. Vandana Shiva developed to deal with the relationship among the economic process, use of natural resources and the natural resource dependent community. She presents this way. There are three economies. One is nature's economy, the second one is survival economy, and third is market economy. Nature's economy based on the cost of nature and natural process that rejuvenate and maintain the ecological equilibrium. Second one, survival economy based on values of sustenance by majority of people in developing countries depends directly on nature for their survival. And third one, market economy based on the monetary cost of the environment for the modern developmental process which pose the economic growth at the central point of the development. Here, somebody in introductory sessions, somebody raised the question, the developmental programs, whose expense, or developmental programs and projects happening at whose expense or at whose cost. The advent of notion of modernization in the fishing sector could be seen as the dominance of market economy over nature's and survival economy. As a capital intensive mode of production, changed the fishing from it was earlier the subsistence level industry, or it wasn't an industry as say, and it changed the fishing from subsistence level, gearing livelihood for millions in the country, to a fully commercial or a corporate, preserving the corporate interest. As a result of which, many market forces could enter the sector, as I would say the exploiters. We can see many stakeholders, like we have retailers, wholesalers, middlemen, exporters. All these forces came to the industry as merely the exploiters of the traditional fishermen. Subsequently, those who were considered the sole owners and having all the right of the sea resources came to be bounded laborers. The open access nature of the resource also triggered the problem. They lost their right over the fish they catch. Even they can't even fix the rate. And many other factors, like when the notion of modernity came, they could, and mechanization of craft, they couldn't afford the mechanization process. They had to get money or from money lenders, and thus the bondage started, and the price fixation and regulation also vested on these market forces. And when the price of the fish in the international market, as we know, the fish product contribute a lot to the state and central revenue or economic income. To add the vulnerability, the second one, I said there are a lot of or n number of projects and programs, strategies implemented for the development, for the mere development of the fisherman community. How they went astray, or how it could went deviate, or how it didn't, or why it didn't get into the actual beneficiaries. What happened? The outsiders who entered the industry, they started claiming as the part of the industry, and they got, or they started getting the benefits of these development programs. And this is the economic aspect or economic part of this marginalization. And coming to the geographical space, as we know, fishermen are the geographical margin of, or literally or physically geographical margins. Geographical space is a very crucial factor that determines people's economic and social status. The communities live away and detached physically or structurally from the mainstream, or keep aloof from where the general population occupy. As in the case of most of the cases, natural resources dependent communities will be intrinsically subject to marginalization. Fisherfolk who inhabit the fringes of coastal area are alienated or kept aside with its geographical and physical characteristic, which is inseparably associated with their everyday life and livelihood. and thus they are alienated and marginalized from society and societal spaces. As we know, most of the as a whole, our fishing communities are verily inhabited in the coastal fringes, and that's why they are at the risk of this margin. And let's see what are the hazards or hazards they face as being in the margins of the land. One is unsafe shelters. Many fishing families live in unsafe homes in the coastal area, as considerable number of them live in houses with unthatched roofs. Still, we are proud of development, and still our coastal huts or coastal hamlets or coastal villages are crowded with unthatched roof houses, while some others occupy in seemingly well roofed houses. In most of the cases, though they look well built and finished, well furnished, the matter of safety is always a concern. As we know, the flood of 2018 and the events happened in 2013 was a very good example how they are suffering from this unsafe or safety concern of their shelters and houses. The proximity of their houses to the sea exposed to the danger of being hit by rough seas, tides, floods that can destroy them abruptly. Recently we have seen the state government have rehabilitated around 200 families to settlement apartment. Those who were lost their houses during the events of or high tide sea in 2013. Even we have more numbers during this flood of 2018. Next, the problem of drinking water and sanitation and health. Though the coastal dwellers live in with and by the sea. Okay, somebody has said water everywhere, not a single drop to drink. Like the issue is like that. They face the problem with the safe drinking water and sanitations. And coming, everybody know the hazards and hazards of being in a marginal space. And coming to the general community, how they are socially alienated or separated. Apart from very intrinsic limitation and risk related to geography, there are some geographical constraints. I have noted two kinds of constraints. One is very subjective, they themselves constrained to their geographical limitations, and one is very objective, which they face from the other communities, or which we call the mainstream community. That is maybe the subjective one due to their some concerns like ethnic purity, preserving the ethnic purity or ethnic identity kind of things, and the objective one which they face from the general community, that is because of certain stigmas or stereotypes. Even still we have the mainstream population have the stereotypes that they are unhygienic, untouchable or uncivilized. In many places the Karakurtukar or the coastal dwellers are the symbol of uncivilized or unhygienic. Only we could accept them during the flood as our heroes. Other than we, the progressive, very educated, well-educated Keralites, still have the stereotype. Okay, by the time constraints, I skip many parts, and I'm coming to conclude here. I have discussed two areas or two aspects: the economic aspect and geographical aspect. Here, as educated or progressive mainland dwellers, we have to change our mindsets or our attitude towards our soldiers or brigades. Let's hope for the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed Saleh, for your paper. The next presenter is Eddie Thomas. He is going to be presenting moral economy of fisher folks in Kerala. field notes from a Christian village near Rabiyath.
I am a specialist in the field of fisheries. I come to this field quite accidentally because at the moment I am working on a project which aims to document the flood and memories and how the fishermen emerge as rescuers and heroes. So as part of this project, I have travelled extensively on some fishing villages, and I thought that there is a story worth to be told. That's how I came to this project, and I think it's important to begin by defining the three concepts I used in this paper. These concepts are moral economy, fishing, and a Christian village. By the term moral economy, basically this concept of moral economy was extensively developed by historian E.P. Thompson. It is used to I think I'm audible? Okay. Yeah. So it is used to explain the organic unity between economy, society and social customs, and how these different faith, economy and customs intersect at various points of life. And that's how this whole concept of moral economy comes into the play. Because we often tend to think that religion and ideology, being illusory, played no part whatsoever in the economic life and organization of the society. So I remember that concepts are not alienated from social experience. Concepts are very much, it should be part of social experience. I think the second concept which requires some kind of explanation is fishing. Fishing is a fabulously an ancient occupation. It is as old as hunting gathering. But it is unlike agriculture, which is regarded as the beginning of civilization. Fishing is seen as a different kind of occupation. It is often seen as an activity that itself is enjoyable. And this view is illustrated by a story basically. The story goes on something like this. Once a rich businessman was passing through a seaside town and he finds one fisherman was fishing with an iron rod. And this businessman finds him so stupid because he advises him that you should go and fish in a sea. Then this fisherman replied, for what? Then he asked that if you go and fish in a sea, you can earn more and you can buy better equipment. Then again, fisherman asked, for what? Then he said, if you get a better equipment and if you can earn more, then you can buy a boat and you can earn more money. Then again, this fisherman asked, for what? Then he said, then you can earn even more money and you can buy a fleet of boats. Then again, this fisherman seems less interested. He asked, for what? Then this businessman said, then you can fish at your own leisure. Then he replied, I am already doing that. But there is some kind of a problem with this story. Because fisherman has to fish not because of his amusement, because he has to fish for his own living. It's part of his subsistence. So I think we need to be conscious of this issue, because even at the time of fisherman movement, the militant fisherman movement, there was a confusion of the term called fisher folk, whether to use the term fisher folk or fish worker, because they began to see themselves as a kind of people who engage in the process of labor. So I think I come to the third concept, village. Even when I discuss with some of my friends and seniors, even they have a problem with the term called Christian village. Though they ask me what is Christian about a village, because village is village. But there is apart from that, there is a persistent habit of viewing village as an unchanging unit of characterization, because fishing village, even otherwise, seem totally traditional, lacking any inherent drive to modernity, and they were assumed to have no actual history, but existing some kind of a timeless present. But in order to bring this concept of moral economy into the focus, my field experience is limited to a smallest possible unit. I would also like to clarify that my field is not, in contrast to what is in the paper, it's not Nilagara, but it's another Christian village. Not a Christian village, I don't know whether I can use the term. It's a predominantly Christian village. And I don't see it as a multi-religious village because the residents of this village are Latin Catholic Christian community, and I will explain why I am using the term in a minute. Yeah, and my field experience is limited to this place called Wadi. I am also acutely aware of the limitations of this exercise because the village selected may not typify the whole of coastal villages with substantial Christian population. At the same time, this village, however, shares certain common characteristics like predominantly Christian population. Church is the principal organization in this village, and I am basically trying to extend this idea of moral economy into different historical contexts, and this paper basically trying to extend it into the field of fishing societies. In the view of Antonio Gramsci, philosophy derives from three sources: language, common sense, and popular religion. The problem I am trying to investigate in this paper is the role of church in a fishing village. The residents of this village, again, as I said, are predominantly Latin Catholic Christians. Since there is very little secondary material available, I rely primarily on unstructured and conversational interviews with various representatives of a fishing life, fishermen, priests, and some of the activists of the fishermen organizations. These interviews were chosen intentionally to reflect the relation between religion, society, and politics. The church is the main institution around which social organization and community of the Christian folk is organized here. The parish priest. Okay, so I don't know, because this paper is quite lengthy. I don't know. I will be able to summarize. How much take me?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. The parish priest is the main leader of this place, who look after not only religious issues but also socio-economic concerns. And for instance, certain rituals prevalent in this region shows how faith was profoundly significant in their life. There is still an interesting custom here in which local parish priests sprinkle water into the sea whenever there is a decline of fishing resources. And similarly, another custom which for me is quite fascinating is something called the parish priest symbolically opened the sea for fishing in the beginning of season. So the only explanation for these rituals are they are part of pre-existing beliefs and traditions. And I also asked about the practice of Kuttaga, which is part of some of these churches, particularly in Trivandrum district like Adimalathura and Poovar, where church levies tax on fishermen. The right to collect this tax is auctioned to the rich and better off in this village. But when I asked, they said there is no such practice in this particular village. But we see clearly tension between religion and social ethic that was based on a shared labor manifested in this militant fisherman movement of the 1980s. In the 1980s, Latin Catholic Fisherman Federation took the decision to change the name of Kerala, name to the Kerala Swatantara Matsyathozhilalai Federation, KSMTF. But interestingly, there was a strong opposition to this change. This change was passed with the margin of only 1 vote. And in the committee, later also this tension resurfaced in many different ways. For instance, for the election there was a further debate whether a priest or layman be the president of this fisherman workers organization. Finally, a priest, Father Albert Parashivada, was elected as the president, and there was also further split in the movement. The organization called Akhila Kerala Matsya Thoyilali Federation. But at the same time, this KSMTM emerged as a secular organization, apparently. And I spoke to some of its leaders. I'm interested to share my conversation with, for instance, A. Andrews, who was the leader of the movement. I met him in the district committee office. And he has only elementary education, but he speaks about Latin American movements. And he asked me whether I read Polar Fair. Then I said I read, but he asked me whether I knew that he was a priest. I said I didn't know that he was a priest. Then he also asked me about Nestor Pass, which I had not heard about him. Basically, it was quite fascinating because he basically fits into the Gramscian definition of an intellectual, organic intellectual, somebody who is not, intellectuals are not a separate class, but they have a social roots. As I'm concluding, I also spoke to a priest who was really part of a liberation theology movement. He hails from this village. He made some interesting observations. He said there are no class for exploiter and exploited in the fishing field now. And there are two types of ownership, individual and collective. And unlike agriculture and industry, there is no wage labor. Distribution of the earnings is in the form of share. The produce of the fish catch is shared all who works in the fishing unit. And now most of the boats are mechanized, they have GPS and capable of deep sea fishing. That's why basically he's saying that the entire sector is modernizing and there is not that kind of a disparity among this sector. I am not very sure about it. And he also said, seen the demise of church role as an economic institution is also changing because with the emergence of fishermen cooperatives and welfare measures, fisher folk is not relied on money lenders and church, and also state is actively intervening in the fisheries sector, and according to him church is withdrawing to its original function to look after the spiritual well-being of the laity. And most notably, he said if fishermen need to improve their socio-economic condition, they should liberate themselves from the church. And instead of hoping for a salvation in other worlds, they should work towards improving their life in this world itself. He also suggested that they should also move out from the crowded coastal settlements to the multi-religious habitational spaces. And according to him, inland fisherman is doing economically and educationally better compared to marine fishermen. These are basically his observations. I don't know whether I share with these observations. I thought it's important to share these things. But one thing I find useful because now fishermen have a new sense of collective. They begin to see themselves as a class. This solidarity with different sections of the working force was reflected in the slogans of the KSMTF, Kerala Samantha Municipal Federation. One of their slogans goes on like this: the workers who carry heavy loads, who beat the cashews, unite as one class to get their rights. And so this new sense of solidarity was derived from the shared experience in labor and social relations. I think that is something remarkably different. So I stop here. Thank you.
Our third speaker is Alexis, and he's going to be talking about modernization at sea and on the coast. Preliminary field reflection from Thiruvananthapuram. He's a researcher from University of Oxford.
Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Alexis, as he just said, and I'm going to be speaking about this topic that you see appearing on the screen, modernization at sea and on the coast in Trivandrum district. So, well, first of all, I'm very happy to be here, but also slightly embarrassed because this is it's very much a work in progress. These are notes and preliminary observations from a field work that I'm currently conducting, and I highly doubt that I have anything to teach you. I think it's rather the opposite, probably. But I think that maybe by presenting these very basic observations here, we can launch a discussion, maybe not exactly at the empirical level, but at a bit of an extrapolated analytical level on these things, and maybe something can come out of that. So this presentation, I'm also trying to keep it very short, but I'm happy to engage with any sort of questions, comments, doubts, and everything after that. And I will follow the outline that you see here. So the study context, as I said, it's my PhD fieldwork. So it's very much a work in progress, and it often feels like it is a work in regress as well. Because the more I learn, the more I meet people, the more I go to different places, the more confused I feel on what to make of this, how to understand these things. And then there is another person, another thing, another technology, another improvement, and constantly new things. So I feel a bit, everything is slightly chaotic, and I think that will show maybe here. But the idea that drove me into this, into framing the research as I started framing it at least, is that I found a lot of literature, academic literature, about the fisheries, not only in India, not only in Kerala, which is very much neoclassical or Marxist or neo-Marxist inspired. And as much as they all have merits, I'm not trying to bluntly attack these approaches, they all give a very normative, fairly deterministic and universalistic picture of the life of the fisheries. And so as a complete outsider, I've always been wondering, okay, but how do the fish workers themselves think, feel about all these transformations that we are looking at, and how do they engage with them? It must be more fine-grained than these very deterministic narratives. And this is where I must make an exception for the works of Professor Kourian, and it's not because he's here, but his works really escape this criticism of Aparna Sundar's PhD thesis, which is also very valuable as a fine-grained analysis, or Ajanta Subramanian's book Shorelines. But so through all that, my initial intention at least, is to get an understanding of the socio-economic and environmental transformations taking place on the coastal Trivandrum. And so there are many stakeholders, they cannot be ignored, but the one I'm most interested in is the fish working community. So when trying to understand what was giving me this feeling about these neoclassical and Marxist or neo-Marxist approaches, I came up with the explanation, which we can debate as well, that maybe it is the way they frame the question of value that determines a lot of their outlook on different things. And so, of course, if you're a neoclassical economist, you will think that utility is what has to be maximized, and there's a lot of debate on how exactly you grasp utility at an empirical level. But value comes from utility maximization, and for a Marxist, it is rooted in labor. So what to do? What to do? Well, after a bit of research and discussions, I found the works of economic anthropologist Stephen Gudeman. He's a culturalist anthropologist who deepens the work of Karl Polanyi. I don't know who is familiar or not with this, and again, I'm very happy to discuss about this later. But he basically, what's interesting here is that he sees any economy as conceptualized around 4 incommensurate domains of value. One is the base, other is social relations, but intrinsically, there is trade and there is accumulation. They are all locally specified, which means constructed in different cultures in different ways, and they operate within 2 realms, the community and the market, which contradict each other. So that is not new, that is what he is taking from Polanyi. The methodology I use for this is exclusively qualitative, and as much as I can I use secondary data, but I'm not conducting quantitative surveys or trying to do regressions or that sort of work. It's mostly interviews, and there is participant observation whenever it's possible. There is other participatory methods whenever it's possible, but there are practical constraints which make it not always very easy. So it's been a story of shifting research questions as well. I was first interested in these two realms, community and market, in understanding how much of mutuality in the social and economic relationship of the community were remaining, and how much of the quote-unquote rationality of the Homo economicus, the neoclassical approach, how these two logics and rationalities were conflicting or cooperating in a fishing environment. And so I thought that to approach that, because this is way too big a project and it has a lot of also cultural barriers that I will never be able to break, the first question is maybe to ask how the fish workers conceptualize their own economy, where I don't think I will teach you anything. And secondly then, if we take a specific example, and here I will talk about a small conflict about fishing techniques, how these people perceive and engage with changes around the boundaries of this economy. So to tackle the first subsidiary question, the analytical exercise here is characterizing the base. The base being one of the 4 value domains in Stephen Goodman's typology. And he presents here a very interesting gap. He calls it the commons, but he says it often has a physical embodiment, but he's been heavily criticized for not really defining what it is. And then his answer is, of course, well, how can I define that? Because in different places it will be different things. So when you start, even if we will see I'm not really managing, but if you start with this pure intention of trying not to impose any frame on any culture and community, the first thing is maybe to try to understand the base of that economy. And so I think instead of reading exactly all 3 points, I think what's important to understand here is that it's an integrated, how I see that base is an integrated triangle at least between the community, the sea, and the coastal land or shore. It's basically impossible to think of one without thinking of the other. The community has its identity largely defined by profession, and the sea, well, provides livelihood. It might be sacred, people call it a mother, give it sacred properties. Sometimes also one guy told me that he considers the sea like an ATM. Okay, but in any case, the sea is the center of how people think and of their livelihoods. And with the fluidity at many levels, whether it's the usage of land, the tenure, but also in any case, it's always related to the sea somehow. So the bottom line of this is whenever we want to think about changes in these economies, well, we cannot really distinguish one aspect from the other, and that makes it very complicated, of course, to analyze, but at least when it suggests that when you start to look at one of these dimensions, you should always keep the other in mind. So now a more concrete case that I've been looking at is the area of Anjutegu. I think most people might know that place already. And I use this picture because, well, it shows very clearly what's going on there. I think it's pretty obvious that there is a disparity between a lot of shore in the south. So what you see on the right-hand side is the south, and the left-hand side is the north, of a mini fishing harbor. That mini fishing harbor was started to be constructed in the early 2000s, and it's not any sort of massive infrastructure project driven by the state or by big capital like some scholars like to research these, but it's a fairly organic development that came after a lot of protests from the fishing community in order to help them, because otherwise it's very difficult to go at sea during especially the rough season. The problem is once this has been constructed, it could not really escape the science of erosion and accretion, and because it blocks the movement of sediments, you end up with a situation like this. But where I'm trying to go here is when we start with a change in nature, we end up with quite interesting and heavy economic and social consequences. So just in the north of that harbor, I'm now going to be talking only of the north. The first 2 villages, and you will excuse my pronunciation, Tararampalli and Puntura, they have completely lost their shore. And after that, there is a bigger village called Anjutegu, which is now losing its shore, but a few years back when I first came, still had some shore. And what happened is that they are using basically very different techniques. So the first two villages who lost their shore were traditionally shore fishing. They were fishing from the shore. And in relative terms, I have no way to verify that, but they would say that they were making much less income than the Anjutengu people who were going to the sea with motorized boats. However, after losing the shore, they had no more livelihood. So many migrated to the Gulf, some were already there, and some went to the north of Kerala. People moved, and they came back with new ideas. And one of these ideas was these ring-seam boats. So in fact, it's a bit misleading the way I put it here, because what's important is more the gear than the craft. But so they started investing in these bigger boats, which use a technique called ring seam, which circles the entire area and take all the fish that are there. And so that's the cause of a conflict which materializes in violence now and then in Anjutengu. Even if it's a little calmer now, it was quite heated the first time I came there 3 years back. And the way people who use it talk about it is they say, okay, they say it's a big livelihood improvement. We take fish, we take a lot of fish. Because of that, we reduce our indebtedness. We have educational improvement. We can send our children to English medium schools, or we can send them abroad. And you have a very different rationality that comes in. People also perceive better labor relations, but I was not able to understand why exactly, because the way that the profit is shared is still the same between owners and workers, but there is a perception there that labor relationships have improved. So I'm speeding up a little bit. On the other side, of course, in Anjutengu, people say that this development is driven by greed. It's only greedy. They take all the fish, there will be no more fish here. And then what people respond is, well, you can just do the same. You have enough money, why don't you buy these kind of boats as well? That is, I put some quotes here, I won't have time to read them all. But so, what do we make of this little story? First of all, the process of accumulation here again is not driven by any major actor. It's a fairly gradual and almost, I use almost because the harbor is there, but it's an organic process of accumulation. There is a clear difference of wealth, very visible between the two villages now, but it happened organically. The importance of history is there. These two communities were not exactly the same at the beginning, but now I'm unable to find any sources, even in the villages, to really help me understand the path dependency. But it's a very important thing. Then, I think at a minor scale, we are still witnessing an ecological distribution conflict, because if you go by this definition, well, conflict on the social, spatial, temporal inequalities in the use of natural resources, that is exactly what is happening here. People disagree on what to make of, how to go for that fish. They disagree on what is the future also, what is development, what is positive. And they both say we want improvement, but the notion of improvement, one is more based on the sea, if you look at the motorized boats, and the other one is more based on the land, in fact, of having a successful life in neoliberal terms. So then, the importance of incommensurability is here. Can we really speak of an environmentalism of the poor here? Or are we just witnessing a neoliberal flattening where everything will become marketized? Well, I don't have an answer for that, but these are the sort of questions that come. One thing though is that, as I was saying that, okay, this improvement of wealth leads to less debt, to better education, to sending people abroad, well, we sort of see a dilution of the community. And I'm not making any moral judgment here, because it's very delicate to say to people, or about people who are struggling financially, that this is a negative thing. It may be a very positive thing, but the community as such, which was in that nexus of sea, land, and community, is maybe collapsing. And in that way, we could think that the tragedy of the commons is not only a resource problem, but also a problem of community. And then I think last two quick points. How do we conceptualize the environment? Again, there are many discussions about nature and society, how they go together, how they are dialectical, and from every possible angle. But we still need to find a way to incorporate these environmental changes into the analysis of social and economic processes. And finally, even though I do not engage that much into this because it's complicated and it's a recipe for trouble, there is the question of power relations, of course. Who has the power to simplify all this complexity? Who has the power to define value? Who has the power to define what is the coastal land and what is the sea and what we are to make of it? Of course, the role of the state is important. Of course, as the previous speaker was saying, the role of the church is important. All these things are there, but I'm not sure I will be able to tackle all of them. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexis, for the wonderful talk. Now that all of the speakers has finished their the church earlier played, are the cooperative societies encroaching into?
The church is playing a positive role, in your opinion or in your analysis, because fishing community has a lot of needs. They are marginalized. So in voicing the concern whether church is yielding a positive influence, how far and to what extent they succeed. Just not answering, just addressing the question will be enough. My question is whether church is able to positively address the pleas of the marginalized community. Are they able to yield a positive influence? Next is not a question as such, it is to Alexis. So I wish to know your motivation in taking Kerala for the study and specifically Thiruvananthapuram. Thank you.
Yeah, I think discussion is going to be our objective, but
I think it's more of a general question, but still the question is to the first speaker. You're talking about how the fisher folks, actually the community is really marginalized. So my question is, what we are talking about how they're marginalized and all that, but how could we, what is the way out? That is, how can we really bring out of, how can we bring them out of the alienation? So what exactly should we do? Rather than just having a vague discussion, what exactly should be done at the root level so that, they are out of the alienation?
My question is to Ebisa. Can you elaborate a bit on how you use the idea of moral economy in your study?
I know it's not your area of expertise, but I would like to know your comment about Oki disaster and the church role. The church and the priest were doing some work, and they were dominant players politically also during Oki and after Oki for compensation and rehabilitation and all. So I would like to know about your comment and your statement. Thank you.
Analytical point of view was there. So what was that dynamics? Rationality, you did analysis both, or you just mentioned about rationality. What was that rationality point? I didn't get that rationality point. Can you elaborate on that?
Do you think the church plays an important role in the political participation of the fisher folk?
Due to the influence of the church, that vertical integration has expanded, vertical integration, and the horizontal integration, that means the informal institutions among the fisher folk, among the community, has reduced. Is that true in your study? Have you found whether it is true in your study? And because of the influence of the church, horizontal integration means between, within the fishing community, within the fishing members, not the priest. Priest is outside the purview. Okay, and among them, the informal institutions were there and are there. Okay, my question is whether that horizontal integration has reduced or not in your study.
Is based on some preliminary field studies, and my observations are provincial and incomplete. And also I forgot to add in my presentation that I was slightly intimidated by the presence of Father Jose Kalikel. So, and I didn't know that Professor John Green was here, so it was at that time was much more confident. So coming to the questions, the first question was the role of cooperatives and how the role of church is declining because of this. Because even some of the priests said earlier church used to lend money to the fishing folk because they had to repay later. But now this role is taken over by fishing cooperatives, and because of the fishing cooperatives also there is much more flexible ways of lending, and I think such mechanisms are in place. That's what I think. I'm not very sure. And the second role, the positive role of the church. I think church is of course playing a positive role because church is also playing a very serious role in the field of education, and church is the most important institution in these areas, and even the senior fisher folk is looking towards both moral and looking towards the moral authority of the priest. So it is an important institution, but I don't know that I am capable of judging the role of church in that sense. So I don't, And third question is about the moral economy. The E.P. Thompson used the concept of moral economy to understand the industrial societies in England, but this concept is extended to study peasant societies, fishing societies in different contexts, and particularly this concept centers around this the relationship of reciprocity between plebeians and elites, and also how, as I said in my presentation, how this concept of ideology, religion, faith have autonomy of their own, and these ideas, how they shape the economic practices and even economic values and social values. I also forgot to mention in my presentation, when I visited this district committee office of KSMTF, I saw the portrait of Jesus in that office, because the institution is apparently a secular institution, and even that one who accompanied me, first thing he did was immediately after opening that office, he stood in front of that portrait and he prayed for some seconds. So, but what I feel is this is not a very consciously religious act. This is part of their everyday life, because they are not doing this something is like kind of a sectarian act. They are doing something which is part of their everyday experience, and they don't separate it as religious and social thing. So that's my observation, may or may not be right. And the question is hockey disaster and the role of church. Actually, I am not quite.
There is a session day after.
Yeah, thank you. And third question is the church and the political participation of fisher folk. Even this KSMTF, before this advent of KSMTF, it was basically the Latin Catholic Fisherman Federation, because it was fully controlled by the church, and even this other splinter group, I don't know what I can call it, splinter group, Akhila Kerala Fisherman Federation, that was fully controlled by Latin Catholic Church, and so it is, but what I feel, because that political equation is changing now, because now also the mainstream political parties are also entering into the field of even because and these even fisher folk is also quite inclined towards other kinds of labor mobilizations, because even I think they are also coming to this, they are part of the larger class mobilization. So that's my observation. Yeah, thank you.
Mohammed Sali.
And we have been testing different strategies so long. But I think the hope we have been given in the introductory remarks, the coordination of interdisciplinary coordination or intersectoral coordination to look at this particular issue, it would be the best way out. Because it is not a mere economic aspect. It has a relation with social, cultural, even ecological aspects. So coordination or inter-coordination of this disciplinary approach or intersectoral coordination would be the best way out, I think.
Okay, so I think the first question was what brought me here. That was a bit of a, it might disappoint you, but it was a bit of a coincidence, in fact. I was doing my MPhil a couple of years back, 2-3 years back, and I was looking for a place to do field work. It could be anywhere in the world, preferably in a developing country. And after trying to go to Brazil and to study the suicide of indigenous people in relation to development projects, and realizing that this was not going to be possible in 2 to 3 months with a very basic approach, then I had some close friends in the Jesuits in Oxford, and then one of them from India told me, okay, I can find a place for you, maybe, like, let me see, and then he talked to some people who talked to some people who talked to some people, and it snowballed that way until the day that I received an email from somebody who is in Anjoutengu now, and he said, okay, most welcome if you want to come, and I said, okay, well, let's go, and let's try it. I went to consult the person who is now my academic supervisor. She said, yes, there are a lot of things have been done, but there are a lot of things to do still about this area. I don't know if she really knew what she was talking about, but that's different. And then, well, anyway, that's how I came here. And after coming here, so the first time was about 3.5 years back. But I suppose you end up having an emotional connection as well. So it becomes, of course, intellectual puzzles are there, but also just the emotional connection to that community, to its challenges is there as well. So that is what happened. As for the question about rationality, well, I think I was trying to say that I didn't manage to exactly delve into that. But what I was trying to talk about and initially to look at is this model of this anthropologist, not Stephen Goodman. And what he does is he puts side to side or face to face so what I call the rationality, what he calls the rationality of the market, which is basically, I don't know if you are an economist, maybe you're okay. So for those who are economists, it's basically the way that you are taught economics in the textbook, which means you have to maximize a few parameters in your life and in your purchases and in everything you do, basically, and that will drive your behavior. And then you're called rational if you take actions that maximize this, what they call utility, more than take actions which maximize it less. But I think what he was trying to say is that at a more intuitive level, is that maybe if you think of a community, a traditional community, I know this is a very problematic term, but just use that for the sake of thinking of whether it is fishermen or maybe Adivasis or different people in localities that are not too much quote-unquote modernized. Well, their interactions with each other, even their economic interactions, will be very much social as well. They will be based on mutuality. So the person with whom you will exchange your I don't know, your grain or your rice or even water, it might very well be your brother or your cousin or somebody who has a connection with somebody else, so that a lot of different parameters than just maximizing the price of the rice or the price of that water are taken into account. And so, as opposed to rationality, in that case, becomes, in the neoclassical sense, becomes a story of interactions that are only once in a lifetime, or maybe never anymore now with internet. Maybe you trade with people that you would never see, and which only really focuses on you making a profit, an economic, monetary profit of in your transaction. I think, yeah. Sure.
There is a seminar by Schumpeter and Joseph Schumpeter and Parsons in that locating Schumpeter's rationality. I think Schumpeter said rationality, in rationality, when we assume rationality as the principle of analyzing some act, your historical condition, you're from a very different historical condition and a cultural condition, and an observer from a very different historical and cultural condition. How can the observer objectively interpret whether the identity of the Bishop Cook is really based on their occupation?
Oh, I completely agree. Who you are because of what you do, that would be terrible. No, what I was trying to do is to say that from the discussions I've had with them, so the whole point of this characterizing the base is to look at how people frame their own economy, their own identity, and how they speak about a lot of things. And I might be very wrong, but what I found is that when I ask for example, how would you characterize your culture or your community, then directly a lot of references to fishing will come. When you ask about knowledge or who is a knowledgeable person in the village, and you don't specify knowledgeable about what will come up is somebody who knows about the fishing techniques, and the fishing techniques, of course, he knows because they are related to the sea. So it's more that sort of insight that I wanted to convey there. But of course, I am nobody to say that this is their identity, and I think that this case, also this very small case study, shows that these things are constantly shifting as well, and we should not put any sort of normative of judgment value on that, but no, it's very blurry and it's changing all the time. And then, actually nobody asked me that question, but I just wanted to compliment a few things about the role of the church. So in different interviews and interactions that I've been making, I felt that, of course, again, so I cannot really assess what is now the importance of the church. And definitely it is very important, but I feel it's like everywhere in the world, maybe it's eroding a lot. And you hear a lot of people saying, when you ask them how is the church helping you with this problem or that problem, they say no, nothing. And of course it's not necessarily true, and the fact that they speak so strongly like this may reveal that actually they are expecting something that is not coming, which actually makes the church important. So the exact, how to exactly interpret that, I don't have a definitive answer on that, but I have witnessed a lot of these testimonies, and on the other side also speaking to some people of the church who in some instances of development have felt abandoned by the fishing community. So I felt like there is an erosion of trust on both sides actually. But I don't know if that is just a temporary thing, if it was always there, or if it's just showing that a bigger movement like what we are seeing in Europe, where our churches are empty, is coming. And the youth also is very interesting to speak to, because they might go to Mass and they might take communion and everything, but if you speak to them more privately about how they perceive the church and how it is important in their life, there is a bit of a discrepancy with the discourse of the parish priest in general. So that's just a little compliment.
With that, I think all the questions has been.
I invite Ms. Megha Mary Philip, student, first year, Department of Economics, University of Kerala, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon all, respected chair, presenters of the day and all other dignitaries. It's my privilege to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. I, on the behalf of Economics Department, extend a hearty thanks to Mr. Prateek Sudhakaran, Assistant Professor, State Texas University, for chairing the session. Thank you, sir. I also take this opportunity to congratulate all the presenters, Mr. Mohammed Salih, Sri Shankaracharya University, Mr. Ebi Thomas, Kerala Council for Historical Research, and Mr. Alexi, University of Oxford, for all their efforts towards the topic. Finally, I would like to extend my gratitude to all the dignitaries, our dear teachers, and the students of the department for engaging the session with your thoughts and ideas. Thank you.